Oh, somebody else probably got yours. You know, and they packaged them up or something. Two number 5s. No. You know what it is? What? You didn't get 2 number 5s.
Isn't that correct?
They printed. See, this is the last page book of number 4.
Yeah.
The first page of number 5 was printed on it. So there's your number 4. I noticed that too.
I didn't notice. Well, I was looking for numbers here, and then I thought, well, where did that go?
Yep.
But I had it flipped upside down, so it had 2 number 5s.
Yep. I shake my head at sometimes the way they print things off.
Okay.
Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustment for the Thursday, May 26th meeting. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we'll do a quick roll call just for the electronically recorded record, and then we'll go through some of the information that you as an audience need to know for participation. Jill.
Here.
Rob.
Here.
George.
Here.
Bonnie.
Here.
Dave.
Here.
Ken. Here. And I am here. All are present from all districts, Planning Commission representative and the at-large. So for the audience, I have a couple of announcements to make. If you are in possession of a cell phone or some other electronic device, I ask that you please put it in silent mode at this time. And then also please note that all testimony is being taped and recorded for the record. If you're going to speak, you'll be asked to state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead with your input after you've been recognized by me, the chair. Members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with 1 member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, 1 member at large, and 1 member appointed from the Planning Commission. And so this is kind of just a brief overview of our proceedings this evening. I will read the variance request and open the public hearing. When I'm reading your request, I will ask that the applicants or their representatives come forward and have a seat in front of the board by the microphone right over there. The applicant and or their representatives will be asked to state their name and address for the record. Environmental service staff will provide a brief overview of the requested variance, the staff report, and if any correspondence has been received regarding this request. And again, the applicants or representatives will then provide any input, corrections, concerns, comments, or whatever they may have. Once the applicant and or the representatives have provided their testimony, the board will discuss the request and ask questions of staff or the applicant or their representative. Upon completion of this board questions, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request, and if there is, I would ask that person to come up to the podium right there, state their name and address for the record, and give their testimony. When all testimony is complete, I will ask the board members for a motion to close the public hearing, and once the motion is passed to close the public hearing, there will be no further input from the audience, from the applicant, or environmental services staff unless recognized by the chair, or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification to their question. The board will then review and discuss the findings of facts, and the facts are a series of questions that the board is required to answer based on Minnesota statutes and the requirements of the ordinance. Based upon the answers to these questions, the board will either grant or deny the variance request. All questions must be answered in the affirmative by the board. And then once the findings are complete, there will be a motion to approve or deny the request based upon these findings. And so that are the instructions that I have for you this evening. And so if we can have our first applicant up, John Griffin and Patricia Murphy of Richmond, Minnesota, please come up to the applicant spot here. And so this evening before us for number 1, we have a request from John Griffin and Patricia Murphy of Richmond from sections 5.21C2 and 10.211A1A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct an addition onto an existing legal non-conforming principal structure lakeward of the established building line and less than 200 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Deep Lake, classified a natural environment. Said ordinance requires additions to a non-conforming principal structure be landward of an established building line or a minimum of 200 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of a lake classified natural environment. The affected property is Lot 2, Block 1 of Hickory Hills, Section 3, Eden Lake Township. And then can I get your address for the record, please?
My home address is
home address. Yep.
17952 County Road 49, Richmond.
Thank you. And then staff, to your report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The applicants own Lot 2, Block 1 of Hickory Hills, which was platted in 1971, and that was prior to any official controls. The lot area is 74,114 square feet, or 1.70 acres. The applicants purchased the property in September of 2004. I've laid out kind of a permit history on the property. 1977, the existing residence was constructed with a valid permit. In 97, a lakeside deck was added with a permit. 2007, there's an existing screen porch that was constructed with a valid permit. And then just a month ago, they obtained a permit to construct a 30 by 40 accessory structure. So the applicants are proposing a residential dwelling addition, including a kitchen, laundry, covered entry, and an attached garage. They currently have a detached garage. The proposed addition is lakeward of the established building line, and it would be 141.8 feet landward of the ordinary high water level per their submitted certificate of survey. The addition will actually be just a hair further from the lake than the existing detached structure. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Deep Lake. That's a natural environment lake. It's not on the list of impaired waters. The septic system was certified compliant by a licensed inspector in April of 22, and it is sized appropriately. The current lot coverage for the property is 13.9%, and proposed will put them at 18.7%. The proposed location of the addition lends no alternative other than the request for the variance. Eden Lake Township, the Sauk River Watershed District, the DNR, and owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. If the variance were to be granted, the board should determine if mitigation is required. We have suggestions by the Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District for mitigation. Staff would see alternative or option number 2 as being viable because of the existing native buffer that's already established. No alternatives or recommended conditions proposed, and I have no correspondence from the public, and with that, I'll send it back to you, Mr. Chair.
And then just for the recording's sake, to do a roll call for those who are able to visit the site. Jill?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. George? No. Bonnie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right. And to the applicant, if you have anything to say, please address the board.
Well, the only thing that I have to say is that I think the the buffer that we have, there's actually a pretty good bluff, and the buffer that we have is about 90% of our lake shore, and I think it is. We use about 20 feet of lake shore as access, and I'd be hesitant to want to do that like a bermed area like the Soil and Water suggested, because it would be, for one, it would be using up a potential second septic site, you know, if our drain field fails, because some of that area is over 150 feet from the lake. And I just don't think it's necessary either. You know, there's a nice woods that actually belongs, those typically the blue lines really don't tell you where the property lines are. It all has to be shifted over to your left, and the woods on the right-hand side pretty much all belong to the neighbor. And it's flat. There's no, it's got a nice sort of, it's like a sponge. It basically collects what water runs off before it runs into that creek, which runs all right along. You can see where it runs in, just right at the lake. So I guess other than that, I don't have anything else to say.
Board members, questions for the staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chair, question for the applicant. What made you decide, because there is that 200 feet landward recommendation, where does that 200 feet landward, is that dashed line there that's streetwise of the house? Okay, so is it feasible to have your addition even further from the lake, where it's still going to attach to your house but be further from the lake? I know that it is 4 feet, I think it says in here, further from the lake, but did you ever think about maybe making it further?
Yeah, I did. I mean, if it was an option, we would do that. So if you see the grade, the way the grade falls away, the left side where the driveway is, everything falls downward from that point. So it would be the only way to put a garage in, other than the garage needs to go on that side, and our aim is to get a one-story living. We don't want to put a basement in. So if we were to add on, let's say behind the house, then we'd need a full basement under that, and it wouldn't do anything as far as adding a garage, So my feeling was that since there is an existing garage there and what we're adding comes up short of where that garage sits, I don't know if you understand that, but the existing garage extends 4 feet further to the west or to your left than the proposed addition will be. So I just felt that it was a reasonable proposal.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, staff or for the applicant? At this point, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this variance request? Policy dictates I ask 2 more times. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Dave Camerad, I so move.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second having put forth before the board. I'll do a roll for this motion. Jill?
Yes.
George, you said yes. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken, you're a
Yes.
yes. All right, the public hearing is now closed, and we will go to our findings of facts question, beginning with number 1. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Bonnie Mossman, house additions and garages would be permitted in this zoning district?
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Number 1 is yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that yes, it will be in harmony with the official controls as they are building it further landward of the water than the original structure is. As discussed too, the 200 feet landward would be completely off of the existing residence, and since they want to build an addition to the residence, it makes sense to have it there. So I believe they are moving it further back from the water, so it is in harmony.
Roll for the rest of the board. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Looking at, Bonnie Mossman, looking at Lakeshore living goals 2 and 5, and also the living goals 3, I believe it is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
All right. Bonnie's a yes for number 3. Jill?
Yes, in addition, Lakeshore Living Policy number 6.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, yes, the owner does propose to use it in a reasonable manner, basically the same manner they've been using it.
All right, Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, the existing residence was built in 1977, which was before the current ordinances were in place and before the applicant purchased the property. So I believe that it is due to circumstances unique to the property.
All right, Jill is a yes. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Dave Cameron, I would say that it isn't going to change anything. There are other houses, and that would be the same.
All right. Dave is a yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 6. And number 7, the final question. The need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe economics were part of this discussion.
All right. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
All 7 questions being answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a motion for the approval of this variance.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the request to construct an addition on an existing legal non-conforming principal lake structure lakeward of the established building line and 141.8 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Deep Lake classified natural environment, with the condition that they maintain the existing buffer as a viable mitigation.
All right, we have a motion. A second?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, I'll second that.
All right, very good. All right. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Your variance is approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving now to item number 2, Clearwater Forest. From Edina, if the representatives for that company will please come forward. Item number 2 is to consider an after-the-fact request from the Clearwater Forest LLC Edina from Section 10.1.8B1 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to leave as constructed an illegal non-conforming accessory structure not meeting the minimum required regulatory flood program protection elevation and finished fill elevation in the flood year fringe of a 100-year flood hazard area. Said ordinance requires all structures to be elevated on fill so that the lowest floor is at or above the RFPE and its finished fill is at least 1 foot below the RFPE. Affected property is the southeasterly 9.20 acres of Government Lot 3 lying southerly of the road. And then that is in Fairhaven Township, and the property address is 13634 Clearwater Forest Road in South Haven, Minnesota. And then applicant, can I get your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Wanda Summers. My address is 13449 Campfire Circle, South Haven, Minnesota 55382.
Thank you very much. And staff to your report, please.
This site is Lot 37 in the Clearwater Forest Manufactured Home Park. The lot has a single-family residential dwelling that's proposed to be removed. A review of historic aerial photography reveals that the structure was constructed sometime between 1995 and 1996, and it did not have a valid construction site permit. The structure is 923 square feet in size. A licensed surveyor from Meyer Rowland Land Services certified the floor elevation in the shed to be 996, which is 1.7 feet below the required regulatory flood protection elevation of 997.70. And the finished filler on the structure is not to the required elevation either. Park management has indicated to us that the potential new renters would like to keep the structure in place and add a new residential dwelling. The property is located in the shoreline overlay of Clearwater Lake. It's in an R1 zoning district, and it is in floodplain. Clearwater Lake is on the impaired waters list for mercury and fish tissue. The property is served by an MPCA permitted wastewater treatment facility. Fairhaven Township, the DNR, Clearwater Lake Property Owners Association, the Clearwater River Watershed District, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. For recommended conditions, the department is recommending condition if the variance were to be denied, the structure is removed from the property by July 1st of 2022. Condition if the variance is granted, that the applicants obtain an after-the-fact permit for the structure by June 15th of 2022. I have no correspondence from the public, and with that, it's all yours, Mr. Chair.
This was not necessarily a required visit, but I'll do the roll call anyway for those who might have come to the site. Jill?
No.
Rob?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
No.
Dave?
No.
Ken?
No.
And I did, just because I was in the area. So, all right, to the applicant for any comments that you would have.
Okay, this was a property that the homeowner passed away last fall, and when we went inside the home itself, discovered that it was not, we were not able to save the house, and it was actually demolished and torn down yesterday. So right now, all that's there is this garage structure that you see. The people who are planning to purchase a new home and move to this site or to this lot are people that are in our campground right now, in our seasonal campground, and they want to buy a new home and put it here. We've already kind of measured out, and the home would sit pretty much exactly where the previous home was. It's the same size. It's a 1680 or 1670 plus a porch. And we would make sure that it was 10 feet away from the existing garage that's there, if allowed to keep the garage. The reason that we asked to leave the existing structure is that it's in really good shape, unlike the house. So it just would be kind of sad to have to tear it down for no other reason than it was, I don't know, I guess built without a permit back before I was even there. But it is in good shape, and this, right now we are in the highest water level that we've had on Clearwater Lake since 1983, and the water is not up to where this garage is. So I'm still very confident that even in the highest of water levels, we're going to be okay with the elevation of the garage.
Any board members, questions for staff or the applicant?
I have one question for staff. I know in the past, this is probably a number of years ago, we talked about when if we were to approve things that are below the elevation, that it could affect the FEMA ability for flood insurance. Would that have any effect on this?
Mr. Chair, Angie Berg, Environmental Services. So it's possible that the property owner would have to pay higher flood insurance rates if their insurance company found out or discovered that the structure was below the base flood elevation.
Okay, but it won't affect like other neighbors and their insurance.
Correct,
Okay.
because the property is so large and there's not anyone adjacent that's so close, because they're all manufactured homes or the RV park, they would really be looking at how it might affect their own insurance.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, question for the applicant. Do we know what the floor looks like in that garage? Is it like a poured concrete floor?
It's poured concrete, and it's not broken up or anything. I know I didn't get a picture of the inside. The door was locked at the time, but yeah,
Okay.
it's in good shape.
So if it did have to be replaced and they did want to rebuild a garage, they'd have to tear up that floor, put in the fill, and then pour in a new floor and then build on top of that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff. Do you have any idea when that was built?
Mr. Chair, Member Schwagel, when I looked through the historic air photos, I did see the structure on a 97 or 98 photo, and I did not see it in 95. Actually, there were historic air photo slides, so 95, it appeared that the structure was not there, and in 96, the structure was showing up on the aerial photo.
For the applicant, how long have you been the manager at the park?
I came in 2014.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members at this time?
Mr. Chair, question for the applicant. So it looks like the pitch of the roof is that one way goes towards the lot and the other way, does that go towards the lake or the wetlands behind it?
Yes, the backside point goes towards the wetlands.
Okay, is there any concern from, staff about the water runoff from the roof of that structure into the wetlands, even though it's been there for 25 years?
Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, with the history of the structure, I don't know at this point, what we could do to mitigate that other than gutter it, or rain barrels or something of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
And question for staff, if this building were to be, damaged or need to be rebuilt, it would then be required to be built at the correct elevation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add, we've been working with Wanda and Phil. Wanda's been the manager now since 2014, and Phil's been the owner for some time. And so our department's been really working with them on trying to get a handle on what's permitted, what's not permitted. Wanda's been working really hard to document inventory, come up with a plan, a process, so when people do want to build structures in their park, that it's clear. So just for what it's worth, this is one where Wanda had reached out and said, okay, we're tearing down the old home and want to bring a new one in. What do we do with this building? So I would say that they're trying to come into compliance as they can.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this variance? Anyone wish to speak to the variance? Anyone wish to speak to the variance? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Bonnie Mossman, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay. Motion from Bonnie,
George Fiedler, I'll second.
second from George. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
and Ken.
Yes.
All right, we are now into closed session for the after the fact findings. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located?
Chair George Fiedler, yes, it is allowed. It's been there for a long, long, long time, and there's structures like it, so I would say yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Dave? Yes. I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, it's a yes for number 1. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong. I believe it is in harmony with the purposes of the controls. I believe that the official controls are trying to minimize property damage, minimize leakage into the water if there is a flood. And as the applicant stated, we are at a pretty historic flood level right now, and the garage is still dry. So I believe that because it is only 1.7 feet below, because it has been there for 25 years, because at the historic level of the water right now, it's still dry, I believe that it is in harmony.
All right. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 2. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say that, yes, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan under Lakeshore Living Policies. Number 3, to discourage the alteration of natural shorelands and the creation of impervious surface in near shore areas. The building has been there for 25 years. I believe that if we did have to tear it down, tear out the flooring, put in fill, add a new flooring, and add in and rebuild it, that would be altering what's been there and stable for 25 years. So yes, I believe it is consistent.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control? Yes or no?
Bonnie Mossman, I would say, yes, it is reasonable to continue using a structure that is in good condition rather than tearing it down because of a technicality.
All right. Bonnie's yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong. Yes, it is due to circumstances unique to the property that accessory building's been there for 25 years, which may predate the current requirements for that flood protection elevation. So yes, I believe it is unique to the property.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I would say it will because the garage is there now, and the garage will be there next week after we approve this, so nothing will be changed.
Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
All right, a yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Dave Gamrad, I believe that economics weren't part of this discussion.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 7. So all questions being answered in the affirmative, I am looking for a motion to approve the variance as requested.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve to leave as constructed an illegal non-conforming accessory structure 1.7 feet below the minimum required regulatory flood protection elevation of 997.70 and not elevated on fill.
Looking for a second?
George Fiedler, all second.
All right. The remaining roll, Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you have any comments, please talk to staff during regular business hours. Thank you. Moving right along to item number 3, a request from Mark and Robin Kaufman of Plymouth, Minnesota from section 10.211A1A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a residential accessory structure less than 100 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Cedar Island Lake, classified recreational development. Said ordinance requires structures to be placed a minimum of 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of lake classified as a recreational development. Affected property is lots 12 and 13, Block 2 of the Kurtz Riverside Addition, Section 25, and the property address is in Munson Township, and the address 21177 Forest Hill Road in Richmond, Minnesota. And then addresses, please, for the public information.
Thank you. My wife and I, my name is Mark Kaufman. My wife and I live at 18140 45th Avenue North, Plymouth, Minnesota.
Thank you. And staff to your report.
The applicants own lots 12 and 13, Block 2 of Kurtz Riverside Addition, platted in 1946. The tract is approximately 22,993 square feet in area, and that's according to their submitted certificate of survey. The applicants purchased the property in 2016. In January of 2018, the applicants obtained a variance to construct additions on the dwelling within the shore impact zone. The board at that time conditioned that the applicants construct an engineered rain garden, which they did, and the rain garden is large enough to assimilate the additional impervious surface being created by this request. So the applicants are proposing a 24 by 24 accessory structure, which would be located 50 feet landward of the ordinary high water level, so right at the shore impact zone. 2 existing 8 by 8 sheds will be removed from the property. The applicants are proposing to gutter the accessory structure and to use rain barrels to collect the runoff from the structure. The property is located in the Shoreland Overlay District of Cedar Island Lake, which is a rec development lake, and it is in a R1 zoning district. The Cedar Island is on the list of impaired waters for mercury in fish and nutrient eutrophication. The septic system serving the property is a holding tank, and that was certified compliant in April 2022. The current lot coverage for the property is 11.9%. The proposed would put it at 13.2%. If the variance would be granted, the board is to determine if mitigation would be required. We have the Stearns County Soil and Water mitigation options enclosed in your packets. Munson Township, DNR, Sauk River Watershed District, the Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, City of Richmond, and owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. Recommended conditions. If the request is granted, recommend that we require at least one of the 8x8 sheds be removed from the property, and then the other would need to be moved to meet the required setbacks. And if that condition is placed, one shed would need to be removed by July 1st of 2022. I have no public correspondence, and so it's all yours.
All right, and can I get a roll call of those who made it out to the site? Jill?
Yes.
George? No. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, very good. Applicants, anything you wish to say to the board?
Mr. Chair and board members, I forgot this time. Thank you, Mr. Board and Mr. Chair and board members. We recognize that this is a very challenging site, and we are proposing this accessory structure. We are trying to minimize, try to minimize the impacts as much as possible, but still meet our needs to be able to store equipment and lawn equipment, cars, vehicles, etc. And one of the benefits, as you mentioned, is that that we would be able to remove the 2 existing sheds. Is the plan to remove those? We looked at some alternative sites, and we found that that they would conflict with our holding tank, or that they would actually have a greater impact, either visual impact from the lake or impacts to our neighbors. And so we really tried to size the structure to make it meet our needs, but then also to minimize the impacts as well, and not make it as big as we could under permitted square footage. So we have also been very intentional about trying to minimize any environmental impacts. We already have a lot of best practices. We do have the rain garden, which is beautiful. I love it in the summertime. But we also have we do already have a 10-foot vegetative buffer around the majority of the lakefront. You probably didn't see much of it since it was underwater, but as the water recedes, very excited. We were able to report that most of it's still there, and the vegetation actually held it. So I'm very pleased with that, and we've tried to retain the old growth trees and minimize environmental impacts. So be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, questions for staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chair, question for staff. So it looks like there is no place on this property that is 100 feet from the OHWL, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I would add that the applicants worked hard to position it so that it was out of the shore impact zone.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Dave Gamrod, I so move.
All right, I got a yes from motion from Dave. Can I get a second?
George Fiedler, I'll second.
Second from George. Jill?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
And we are in closed session now. Question number 1. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Bonnie Mossman, this is R1, and so garages are permitted in R1s.
All right, Bonnie is a yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, as stated, there is no place on this property that is 100 feet that meets the official controls. They worked hard to get it as far away from the water line as possible, so I believe that yes, it is in harmony.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with a comprehensive plan, yes or no?
I believe, Bonnie Mossman, I believe that it is looking at living goals number 3, to support housing options that give people choices for safe and stable and affordable homes. And I believe having a garage adds to the safety and stability of a home.
All right. Bonnie is a yes for number 3. Jill?
Yes, and I'd like to also include Lakeshore Living Policies number 5.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, yes, I believe they will. They're taking away 2 sheds and consolidating everything in 1 shed.
All right. Yes from George for number 4. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to unique circumstances to the property not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chair, I would say that is true because when they can have no place that's 100 feet from the water, when you live on a peninsula, it kind of creates a whole new way of doing things out there. So I guess it is pretty unique.
Yeah. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe building a small accessory structure in this housing environment will change the essential character of the locality. So I'm a yes.
All right. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Schweigel, I don't think economics played a part in it at all.
Okay. So Rob is a yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right. All 7 questions being answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a motion to approve the variance.
Mr. Chair? Angie Berg, I just wanted to add number 3 is if the request is granted, require at least one of the sheds be removed prior to July 1st or before a construction site permit is issued, whichever comes first. If you could add that part, I think the applicants would likely be okay with that. We aren't able to issue permits unless the property is in compliance, so just wanted to be clear about that.
Okay. Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I move that we approve a variance to construct a residential accessory structure 50 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Cedar Island Lake, with the conditions that at least one of the 8x8 sheds be removed from the property and the other moved to meet the required setbacks before construction site permit is issued, and that the applicant build gutters and use rain barrels on the accessory structure with a financial guarantee in favor of the county required equal to 125% of the cost for mitigation.
All right. We have a motion from Jill. A second? Anyone?
Dave Cameron, I'll second.
All right. George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Your variance is approved. If you have any questions, just talk to staff during regular business hours. Thank you. Number 4, to consider a request from Dennis and Janice Schrammel of Monticello, Minnesota, from section 6.2.1P, table M of the subsurface sewage treatment system ordinance 422, to construct a single-family residential dwelling unit addition less than 10 feet from a sewage tank and less than 20 feet from a subsurface sewage system soil treatment area. Said ordinance requires structures be placed a minimum of 10 feet from a sewage tank and a minimum of 20 feet from a subsurface sewage soil treatment area. The affected property is Lot 6 of Lang's Rice Lake Addition, Section 17, Eden Valley Lake Township, property address 17835 Rice Lake Road, Eden Valley, Minnesota. And then can I get your name and address for the public record, please?
Dennis and Janice Schrammel, 17835 Rice Lake Road, Eden Valley, Minnesota.
All right, and staff to your report, please.
The owners purchased the property in July of 2019, which is Lot 6 of Lang's Rice Lake Edition, which was platted in 1945. The lot size is 24,548 square feet or 0.56 acres. The original dwelling unit and lakeside deck were constructed in 1987 with a valid construction site permit. The detached garage on the property and the roadside deck are illegal, but are proposed to be removed in coordination with this proposed project. The applicants are proposing to construct an 8-foot 8-inch by 11 covered entry addition on the existing house, which would be basically in place of that illegal deck that's on there. This would result in the setback being 4 feet from the existing septic tank and 12 feet from the existing septic dispersal area. The intent of those setbacks is to prevent interference with the construction, operation, or maintenance of a septic system. I would note that there are other additions and alterations planned as part of the project, but none of those other than the covered entry require a variance. An alternative to the request would be to eliminate the covered entry addition, therefore eliminating the need at all for a variance. The property is located in R1 zoning. The existing septic system was certified compliant in June of 2019, and the system is sized appropriately. The existing impervious lot coverage is calculated at approximately 19%, and the proposed would put them right at the threshold of 25%. Eden Lake Township, the North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, Rice Lake Association, DNR, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. Recommended conditions. As I mentioned, the alternative would be to eliminate the covered entry. But if the variance were denied, the deck would need to be removed by June 30th of 2022. I have no public correspondence, so it's all yours.
All right, roll call of those who are able to visit the site. Jill?
Yes.
George?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. And Ken?
Yes.
All right, applicants, anything you wish to say to the board?
The addition of the covered entry is going to be a shallow footing. That is going to be within what you stated of the 4 foot from the tank and 12 feet from the drain field. So it's not taking out any much dirt and soil there to have impact. And also we're making it to have a safer access to the home as we age.
Yeah, I mean, this is our retirement home, so we just are looking to have something that, you know, if we end up in, you know, having a walker or something, just to actually have a safe platform to enter the house versus just a few stairs directly out of a door. And that's, yeah.
All right, thank you. Any questions from any board members for staff or the applicant?
George Fiedler, a question for staff. Is there an ultimate location on this property for a septic system?
Mr. Chair, Member Fiedler, I guess we didn't really explore that. Ultimately, if the system failed, it could go in the same location. It just would not be a standard type system, but we didn't investigate that as part of the request.
Okay. And a question for the applicants. So, looking at this little diagram here, this cover from the tank, it's got an access pipe sticking up. How's that going to impact you walking in the house? I mean, you're going to cut that off? What are you going to do there? What's your plan?
So we would probably cut that to the level of the tank, and we have still 4 feet that we would have green space there before walking up to the steps. That answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Robert Schweigel, I have a question for staff. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said. Will it have an impact on the septic system?
Mr. Chair, Member Schwagel, really be a minimal impact because, as the applicant stated, there isn't any underground frost footings or, I mean, it's mostly all above grade. There's no basement underneath it.
It's not going to infringe on the drain field at all, or?
No, other than not meeting the required setback, it really shouldn't have any impact on the system.
Thank you.
George Fiedler, another question for staff. So is there any stipulation against them putting a sidewalk over that cover?
Mr. Chair, Member Fiedler, yes, they aren't allowed to cover either the tank or the drain field with impervious surfaces. So concrete can't be poured over the top of the tank. If maintenance needs to be done with it, they need to be able to access it.
And so applicants, you understand that? Okay.
Any other questions? Opening up to the public, anyone wish to speak to this variance? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance? Hearing none, asking for a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Dave Cameron, I so move.
Motion from Dave. Can I get a second?
Chairman Robert Schweigel will second it.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, the public hearing is now closed, and now moving to the finding of facts. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler. Yes, I would say it is allowed. A entrance into a home is allowed. Modifications to the home are allowed.
All right.
Say yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
I would say, Bonnie Mossman, I would say yes. Living goals number 3, to support housing options that give people in all life stages and all economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes. And adding in an addition as an entryway would make it a more safe entryway system.
All right, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
I think Bonnie's answer is for number 3. We were on number 2, right?
Yep, 2.
Oh, excuse me.
Yep. So should we vote on number 3? I'll vote on number 3 and say yes.
All right, we'll go back. Yeah. All right. George for number 3?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, going back up to number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that the official controls, the purposes and intent are to make sure that the subsurface sewage treatment system is accessible, is maintainable, that there's access to it so that the homeowner is able to maintain it. It sounds like they've worked as best as they can to still make it accessible while also meeting their needs. So I believe, yes, it is in harmony.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 2. Moving down to number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Dave Cameron, yes, it's reasonable to want a covered addition to or access to your home.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, the dwelling unit was constructed in 1987 before the applicants purchased the property. Presumably, the septic system also existed before they purchased the property. The entrance to the building is where it is. So they would like to have a more accessible entrance to their home. So I believe that, yes, it is unique to the property.
All right, George.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
And Ken.
Yes.
Yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Bonnie Mossman, I don't think it'll change the character. Plus, they will be removing a garage and a deck that are currently illegal, and those will be removed. So this home setting will be more in compliance than previous. So I think that's improving the character of the area.
Jill.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob.
Yes.
And Ken.
Yes.
Yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Bonnie Mossman, I don't believe economics were part of the discussion.
All right. Jill.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob.
Yes.
And Ken.
Yes.
Yes for number 7. All questions being answered in the affirmative. Looking for a motion to approve the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the request to construct a covered entry addition 4 feet from a sewage tank and 12 feet from a subsurface sewage system soil treatment area.
All right, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second from Ken. The remaining votes. George.
Before we
Go
go
ahead.
forward, that they are removing the detached garage as well, do we need to put that in as a stipulation, or will that be part of the rest of their other building project that's going on?
Mr. Chair, Member Mossman, the addition, they're going to have an attached garage addition. That will be in the location of the existing detached garage.
Okay, so that'll take care of itself. Thank
That'll
you.
Go away.
All right. George.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie.
Yes.
And Rob.
Yes.
All right, your variance has been granted. If you have any questions, please contact staff during regular business hours. Thank you. All right, and item number 5, to consider an after-the-fact request from Shady's Property Investments of Cold Spring, LLC, Albany, Minnesota, from Section 6.21G, 7.19.2E, 10.211A, 1A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, to locate an accessory structure less than 10 feet from the principal structure, to provide less than the required number of off-street parking spaces for a mixed use consisting of a golf course and an eating or drinking establishment, and to locate a structure less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of Schneider Lake, classified as recreational development. Said ordinance requires the following: a 10-foot setback from an accessory structure to a principal structure, 176 off-street parking spaces, and a 100-foot structural setback to a recreational development lake. Affected property, part of Lot 5, part of the northeast quarter, southeast quarter, and part of Lots 1 and 2 of Fairway Shores, Section 20, Wakefield Township, and the address of the affected property, 17467 Fairway Circle, Cold Spring, Minnesota. And then your names and addresses for the record, please.
Hello, Chris Schiffler, 103 Power Drive, Albany, Minnesota.
Lee Mergen, 14690 Chippewa Road, Bertram, Minnesota.
Thank you. And staff, your report, please.
The applicant's purchased property contract for deed in December 2020 is 2.32 acres in Section 20 of Wakefield Township. The property is in an R1 zoning district and is home to a golf course, clubhouse / pro shop, and drinking establishment. There's an extensive permit history here. I'm not going to go through every one of those and bore you, but you have that detail in your packets. Part of the reason we're here is in 21, Environmental Services received complaints regarding the dock facility lighting, outdoor music, and seating spaces not being in harmony with a conditional use permit that was obtained in 2019 and the zoning ordinance standards. So the reason we're here tonight is there's an existing stage trailer where entertainment performs that's 70 feet from Schneider Lake. The applicants would like to keep it in that same location. Also, there is a mobile food prep beverage trailer that is 5 feet from the clubhouse. When the requirement is 10, they'd like to keep that where it is. And lastly is the parking variance. They are asking to employ 146 off-street parking spaces. The requirement is 175, and this would include using 23 dock parking spaces for people coming in off of the public water. The property is located in R1 zoning district and within the shoreline overlay of Schneider Lake, which is an RD lake. The existing septic was certified compliant May 7th, 2019. The existing impervious lot coverage is 51.6% per their certificate of survey, and their proposal includes removing areas of impervious surface to achieve 42% lot coverage, which was previously authorized. Wakefield Township, the Sauk River Watershed District, the DNR, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, Cold Spring and Richmond cities, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. An alternative to the request would be to move the mobile beverage unit 5 feet further from the clubhouse to achieve the setback requirement. The second alternative would be to eliminate the stage trailer and have the entertainment perform on an existing paved surface. And just the recommended condition, which is actually stipulated in a signed agreement, that the lot coverage is required to be restored back to grass by November 1st of 2022. I do have one letter from a member of the public. I'll read that in here to the minutes. It's from a Deborah Grant. We are homeowners located at 17473 Fairway Circle in Cold Spring. It is our opinion that Shady's Property Investments at Cold Spring LLC should have to comply with current Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. With the additions that were made between the main building and the lake, the noise in the neighborhood has increased significantly. When they have outdoor entertainment, it is loud and the noise carries so much that we cannot sit on our own patio and listen to our own music, a ball game, or enjoy peace and quiet. When they had a well-known band performing outdoors last year, some of their male attendees thought the land at the end of the cart shed facing our property and patio was an outdoor bathroom. By our count, they are nowhere close to the required number of parking spaces, including both parking areas. The ordinance was put into effect for a reason and should be followed. Deborah Rausch Grant and Thomas Rausch. And that's all I have for correspondence.
All right. For those who are able to visit the site, Jill?
Yes.
George?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, applicants, you can address the board.
I guess there's a lot of things on there that to kind of address. One of them was, I guess, that outdoor surfacing, just the seating for our customers out there. I mean, during COVID, they were basically telling us to rock and roll and get as much stuff outside as you can. We maybe took that a little bit too far on putting the rock in there. We didn't actually know that that was not pervious. So when we did it, it was actually a mistake, and then we found out later. The parking, the golf course is actually, requires, or the county requires 5 spots per hole for the golf course. Our golf course only allows 4 people to golf per hole. So 5 parking spots seems a little bit aggressive. Maybe 3. I think a lot of people drive together. So that kind of knocks down our parking spots a little bit. We also were looking at using a lot of our people that are coming to our restaurant and bar are the lake people. So it would be nice to be able to utilize and have those docks and the spots on the dock count as parking. I don't know if anybody else has ever done that before, but legitimately that's where 50, 60% of the customers are coming from in the summertime when we need the parking. So that is utilized for that. We don't expect each spot to count for 6 or 8 or 10, but it should count. We were hoping it would count for something. So as far as moving some of the pervious space, we talked about taking down one of the sheds that we have there, actually not taking the whole shed down, but taking the L part of it off, and then taking away some of that tar there, and then we're going to add on to the parking lot across the road, which is on the golf course side. We've also been with the board there. We're all on board with everything. The board at the golf course, they're okay with us adding on to that. We're talking about retarring it. All the road is getting redone there this year, so that's all going to get torn up. So we kind of we would like to make it work with that. You know, when they're coming through with tar, that's when we'd kind of like to do the work so we don't have to redo it, go over it you just do it one time and be done. So the food trailer, there is no food in there. All it is a beverage trailer right now. We don't have food because we don't have enough employees to put out there. So all it is serving pop and drinks. And the band trailer, again, is just a flat trailer that it is movable. They are both movable. So I know they do still count that as pervious space. I did not know that. I learned a lot about pervious space. So, and if it has to be moved or taken off there every time, we don't have an issue with that. It's just we'd rather just get our pervious space down. So by taking off that building and removing that tar and some concrete, we'll get back down to below that 42-ish%, a little bit less than that. Actually, we'll be, I think, around 40. So we'd like to just have a little bit more cushion, a little buffer in there. So that's kind of where we're at on that. So.
Mr. Chair, Angie Berg. So I would just like to add that this meeting is in the first of two. So the Stearns County Planning Commission will be hearing the amendment to the conditional use permit at the June meeting. And so that will get at the docking, the lighting, some of the music, things like that. So it's all obviously interrelated, but I just wanted the Board of Adjustment to realize the Planning Commission will be taking it up next month. But the reason we have it come here first is because if you say no to the parking spaces, then that changes what their conditional use permit request would be. Thank you.
Any questions from board members for the applicant or the staff?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler for the applicant. Is there a reason the stage trailer and the beverage trailer why you can't move it and be in compliance?
The beverage trailer is actually hooked up to the water on the building. So it is hard plugged in on hardwired and water is out in that trailer. So we could move it 10 feet away, but it acts as a barrier to kind of like a wall to our kitchen. Our kitchen, we built we have the two coolers that come out the side door, and then the kitchen's right there. So it kind of acts as a barrier that you can't see that mess. And so we could move that one. The stage trailer we can move out every time if we wanted to. Every time we're only doing 1 or 2 man bands. We're not doing any big events. We cut our bands down by 30% for this year. We want to make the people on the lake happy too. We're there for everybody to enjoy. So, but to answer your question, we could move it another 5 feet. It would just be a matter of just getting that extended if that had to be. So.
Also, moving that beverage trailer also, it stops people from being able to go through there. If you were all out there, you'd probably see people can't get through there, and we don't want people to get through there to the back side of the kitchen.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, question for staff. I believe that 10-foot distance between accessory structures and buildings, is that for like fire safety and access, or is there other history to that 10-foot requirement?
Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, my understanding is that 10-foot setback primarily is for fire code reasons.
Okay, thank you. And then with regards to the stage trailer, 100 feet being required, is there a line on this map that shows the 100 feet?
Angie, I believe that it was right in front of that little structure to the right of it when we looked.
Yeah, I don't see that the surveyor put that 100-foot mark on this copy. But yeah, 30 feet to the east.
I can look up an aerial and get that up while you're talking or taking the public testimony, and I'll throw that up here.
Okay. So, and then just so I understand, the 100 feet required, that's specifically about accessory structures and not necessarily off of business accessory structures or commercial accessory structures or entertainment platforms. Is that how I'm understanding it? I know sometimes ordinances are more general.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, that's a uniform setback for accessories. In all zoning districts for any structure over 150 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Rob Schweigel, I have a question for the applicant. All these issues, were they present when you signed that C4D?
Some of them, yes, some of them were.
Which ones?
The pervious space was, when we signed the C4D, we were already actually over on our pervious space when we had it surveyed originally, so.
But the beverage trailer and the stage?
No, that was before that. The beverage trailer and the stage were ours, and we didn't know that things that were that are mobile were actually considered to be part of the building. That was actually, to be honest, that was the idea on the stage being, we didn't want to put pervious space out there, so we did it on wheels. We built one on wheels that we were able to move. Well, we didn't know that that was actually considered still a structure, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, question for the applicant regarding the docking. It sounds like part of this was brought up because of the dock facility lighting having complaints. If you are proposing to use the docking as auxiliary parking spaces to meet that kind of requirement, what kind of things are you doing to make that dock area to act as formal parking, safe for folks to come on and off your property, things like that? Are you doing improvements to it, or what are you doing to make it so that that is a formal part of your parking plan?
Yeah, I mean, the improvements have already been made, like the lighting is a big issue to be able to have parking. As you guys can see, the building and the bar restaurant are on top of the hill, and everything is pretty far below, so we needed adequate lighting as far as the insurance company goes to make sure that it was safe, that people are down there. We've adjusted our lights numerous times, and we're willing to do it again. We just need somebody to tell us where they want it to be. If somebody comes out there and says, let's go out on the lake, let's look at it, we're willing to change anything we have to. I can't put weaker lights in there that don't shine. It's just not safe for the people. It wouldn't be safe in a parking lot, much less going down on a dock, so.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I did throw an aerial up here with the 100-foot buffer from the lake, so you can see, to Member DeLong's question, where the 100-foot is approximately.
And can you indicate on there, where is the current, that flatbed for the music currently at? Right there, okay.
That's the stage, right?
Correct.
Now, does the beverage trailer have to be beyond that 100 feet?
The beverage trailer is.
Is?
Yeah. Yep.
Right up in there? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's right up to the building.
It'd be pretty close if we had to move it 5 feet, though. It would be right in there. It would be right in that same mark.
Then you'd be touching.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be. That's from what I can see on the thing there. So. All you got.
And my thought with that beverage trailer is if you move it closer to the lake, even 5 feet closer to the lake, that's quite of a significant kind of drop in the topography there. I'm
We
not
would
sure
definitely have to add more dirt in there to make it level again, yes,
Right.
for sure. Yep.
Any other questions?
question for the applicant. With that beverage trailer, keeping in mind that that 10-foot requirement is kind of for, fire, does the beverage trailer, since it could be food prep, does it have like stoves or ovens or deep fryers or any kind of those kind of cooking facilities in it, or is it mostly just beverage dispenses?
Strictly for beverage right now, we met with Sarah Cavelli, food and beverage liquor for the county. We met with her and she approved everything, but we don't have any employees to cook out there, so we never bought any of the equipment. There's no fryers, there's no flat tops. If anything, they'd have a roaster with some hot dogs in it. That's probably about the extent of what they can really do out there, so.
And you said it was close to the kitchen, so keeping in mind, again, fire safety, if the kitchen were to suddenly start on fire, is it right near that beverage trailer where it could jump from one to the other?
Yeah, it probably could.
Any other questions? Any members from the public wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to, yep, go ahead. Please state your name and address for the public record, please. Thank you.
Nick Demuth, my address is 17572 Flint Court. I'm actually 4 houses from the clubhouse. I just have a question for the applicant. I do attend the place, I do like it, just so you understand that. But my question is, you talked about taking off the L shape off the chart, and your intent is to more parking there?
No, the intent is we need that ground for pervious space. We don't want to tear it down. It costs us money to do that, obviously, but because we need the pervious space, we're going to get rid of that, and then the dark part of that car that you can see on that picture. There. That is going to be grass along with that building.
So
then we'd also have to take out the part to the east of the, that would be grass, and then that would also have.
So you're not taking that shed off? Can I go my yep.
Yep. L part. Just that part right there. Yeah. That's going to be. That's how the only way we can get enough pervious space.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak to this variance request? If not, can I get a motion to close the public hearing? And so there are several options that we do have. Option number 1 is to go, this option 1 will be a 2-parter. The first approval sheet will be for the stage trailer and the beverage trailer unit, and then we would vote on parking, or we could do every single one individually.
And could I ask one additional question before we do that?
Go ahead.
That just came to me. If you remove that piece of that shed, it looks like that the stage is at the end of that building. Will the stage still remain right where it is, or will the stage move back? Or, I mean, I'm just thinking about if it's getting any closer to the homes or.
Right.
Correct. No, it wouldn't move back that way, so.
Okay.
No.
Nothing closer to the homes than they are. Okay.
If anything, it would probably move closer. We did talk about putting it, there's a little white structure. Can I approach that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So how did we want to do this? Everyone individually?
Public hearing?
Yeah. Your motion, Ken? All right. Second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion and a second. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Rob? Yes. All right. Public hearing is closed. So again, our options for number 1, first of which would be the stage trailer and beverage trailer unit, approving that one, and then approving parking on a different one, or again, every single one individually. Personally, I think it makes sense for option 1 to do the trailer and the beverage trailer unit together and then the parking, but whatever the wish of the board is.
I would agree with that.
I agree with having 2.
Is that the general consensus of the board then, or? Okay. All right, so this one is for the stage trailer and beverage trailer units. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
They would be allowed in this commercial area.
Okay. Jill?
I don't know. It's a R1 zoning district, but this is a commercial property. So I don't know how that, question for staff, how does a commercial property in an R1 zoning district impact what's allowed?
Structures. Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, so this property was commercially established prior to 1972, which is when the shoreland ordinance came in. So there's special provisions in the ordinance that indicate that it can remain, and any commercial or industrial establishment in shoreland before that date is allowed as a conditional use to remain, and hence every time they want to expand, they need to amend their CUP.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yep. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, a yes for number 1. Number 2 is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of official controls. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Schweigel, I'm going to say no. It goes against the 10-foot setback from the building that staff said has to do with fire code, and the stage is too close to the lake.
Okay. A no from Rob. Jill?
I think that yes, in that it sounds like both the beverage trailer and the existing stage trailer are movable, where with the fire code, it sounds like for the most part that beverage trailer would not have much opportunity to be its own fire source. And the stage trailer, with regards to being 70 feet from Schneider Lake, that one, it is movable, and it sounds like it's possible to move it further away. So I don't know how to say that. I'm not sure.
All right, George?
I'm going to say yes if they're moved.
Yep. Dave?
I'll say yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 2. Number 3 is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say yes under business goals number 3, acknowledge tourism's economic value and the prospective contribution of this industry to both the diversity of the county economic base and the potential for growth. I believe that having a golf course on a lake is a tourism spot. Being able to go on a boat to see music on the lake is also a tourism spot. So I believe that, yes, we want to acknowledge that they're trying to adapt to COVID times and expand their business and meet this kind of tourism. So yes.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control? Yes or no?
I believe it, Bonnie Mossman, I believe it is reasonable when you look at golf courses, not only just this golf course and clubhouse, but a lot of them, serving beverages and having entertainment is a critical part of many of those businesses. And so I think, these deal with what's a normal use for a golf course and clubhouse restaurant area.
All right, Bonnie is a yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong. I believe that the unique to the property is that the main building of the property is where it is. So we're thinking about just the location of these 2 trailers or accessory structures. So for the beverage trailer, yes, that's unique to the property because the way that the business flows, the way that people flow through the area, it makes sense to have that beverage trailer where it is, just how the business works. So I think that that is unique to the property. With regards to the stage, that one I'm not sure on. It's hard when they're both the same one together. Maybe I should have changed my vote to have each one separate. Because they can move that stage. I don't know.
Do you want me to circle back or yes or?
Mr. Chairman?
I am open for anyone else's input.
Could I ask?
You can, yes.
For staff, if that was a portable stage and it was taken out and put in every time it was used, would it have different rules? Say if some bands come with a stage and it folds out and their lights go on and everything at some places, and if that was that type of situation, would there be regulations on how close it could be to the lake or whatever? If they just pulled it in, had their show and left? Or is this a different situation, even though it's, maybe it has to be removed and made more portable?
Mr. Chair, Member Gamrat, I think what's unique about this request is that a lot of these types of venues are in municipalities, and this particular one is within the township boundaries. And so it presents different challenges in terms of complying with zoning ordinance rules where they're different in municipalities. So I know that's not getting to the heart of your question, but it's difficult to regulate something that's mobile, just because of the transient nature of a structure like this. And so even though it's mobile, the rules still apply to it. But being it's mobile, it's hard. It's honestly very hard to regulate, just because it's not stationary like the clubhouse is. I don't know if that really answers your question.
Suppose if it sets in one place for a month or 2 months, then it's not considered mobile.
Well, and that's similar to our RV rules. where an RV can be located on a property for less than 30 days in a year. It's supposed to be registered, but once again, difficult to regulate if it isn't sitting there for more than a weekend and then it's gone and then it comes back the next weekend. And so it's a very challenging situation.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, comment. So the applicant said they could move it. So if we're interested in maintaining the setbacks for these things, they're movable. As long as the applicant says they'll comply, we should consider that.
You just have to move it.
And I have a question for staff. If we do findings jointly for these two trailers, can we vote separately?
Madam, oh, I'm sorry, I'm used to you being chair. Mr. Chair, Member Mossman, no, you need to separate your findings because your findings have to support your vote.
Okay, thank you.
But you could shift gears if you need to at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just because a couple of these I've been split, is it possible to go back and do separate findings? It's the last one, and the sun's still up, so it's not like we're late tonight.
Mr. Chair, I don't have a big enough eraser.
Can we just put something in that the one that's causing the issues is the band trailer would need to be moved in between to be abide by the setback, and then they can move it back and forth. They could probably grab it.
That would be 100% the easiest for us if that's the one we had to move and that's what it took. It's not, because we want to tear down that shed anyways, it'll actually work out just fine. To be 100 feet is not a huge issue on that one. It's a lot easier there that we're not wasting the money doing it on the other one. We would really like to keep that one and not move it. If we have to move this stage, it's not the end of the world for us. So we're totally okay with that.
Could we, when we word, if we approve it, could we word it to be that it's no closer than 70 feet? So then that way it allows them to move it further away, but still be, you know, if they move it to by that white building or whatever, the one that they talked about where it would be maybe 95 feet away, it's further away, but it would not require them to refile stuff. I don't know.
Well, my thought process was you would move it, be compliant, and leave it.
Sounds wonderful.
Mr. Chair, Chris, on the record, could withdraw the request for the variance request on the stage trailer, and then that could be just eliminated from the discussion, and then you could finish your findings on the other food unit, if I'm catching everyone's.
And if he puts it 100 feet, then there doesn't need to be anything.
Correct. So he could just withdraw the request, and you don't have to split to your two findings. You can just pick up your findings for the mobile beverage trailer.
So how do we, if we do that, then how do we know he's going to do what we're asking him to do? Doesn't it have to be documented somewhere somehow?
So, Mr. Chair, Member Fiedler, we have a compliance agreement signed that they're going to do a whole lot of things.
Okay.
And I'll be working with them in the next 6 months to make sure it all occurs.
Somebody will tell us.
All right, I'm satisfied.
No doubt.
And my thought is, not to add more to it, but one other option would be to approve it in, as both trailers together, with the condition that the trailer be moved during non-performance times, so that the trailer could sit there during the performance times and then moved away.
Would that put responsibility on the county, though, to ensure that that happens? I don't want to make more work for the county to have to come in and say, oh, is there a performance tonight? Did you move it? I don't want to have to make them have to follow up, though, either.
They've already agreed to just move it and be done with it, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
Move it, be in compliance, and we're good.
That's where we're at too. I'd rather do that than move it every week.
Okay.
Be done with it.
That would be the best. Originally, we were having an argument, the discrepancies on this was because of pervious space. Because we were so short on that pervious space, that trailer counting as pervious space hurt us. The other food trailer counted as pervious space hurt us. So we only had one option but to get rid of that tower and part of that shed. So that's to move it isn't a big deal for us, but we just needed the pervious space originally, but now it doesn't matter anymore, so.
And the beverage trailer, there's too many good reasons to keep it where it is, to keep people away from the building, or else you're gonna have people going back and forth through there. You're gonna have to put another fence up. So,
Okay, so then we'll just vote these and then make that change at the end.
I
If
think
that-
we just need to
Yep.
ask the applicant if they'll withdraw.
Will you withdraw that the stage trailer from?
Yes, I will.
All right, going back to number 5 then. Jill?
Yes, it is unique to the property because with the food and beverage prep trailer, the way that the flow of the business goes, it makes sense to have it where it is.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. And Ken?
yes,
Yes for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, now that this part of this variance request is just about the food and beverage trailer, having that being part of this commercial property that includes a restaurant already, it should not change the essential character of the locality.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
yes.
Yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I believe the request was more about use of the space rather than it was anything economic.
Jill?
I'm going to say yes, but as it is a commercial business, I think economics are part of it, but it is not the only reason why.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 7. So just get a motion for the beverage trailer.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a variance request for, to locate an accessory structure less than 10 feet from the principal structure.
All right, second from anybody?
I'll second it.
All right, a second from Ken. The remaining votes, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
All right, so that variance for your beverage trailer has been granted, and now moving on to our findings of fact for the parking part of this request. So the proposed use is allowed in zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, do we have to come up with a number that we're gonna be happy with, or just go by what?
Do we need a little more discussion before we
Yeah.
have findings on this?
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, for sure.
For the discussion part, this is Jill DeLong. I feel like this location, with that lake, because isn't it a part of the chain of lakes too? It's just a unique part of our county, that chain of lakes. I know how huge just recreational boating is on the chain of lakes. I mean, that's just part of the culture of that area of our county. It makes sense to me that in the summertime, when so many people are out on their boats, that they're going to come to the golf course via boat instead of other kinds of transportation. So it makes sense to me that in this unique location, in that unique culture of boating during the summer when people are going to be golfing, to make dock spaces as applicable parking spaces.
And I also, if we're talking about, the parking spaces, when we're looking at the 5 spaces per hole on the golf course, as he stated, they limit golfing per hole to 4 people. So having 5 spaces is, I think, overkill. So if I don't know, if we'd be giving them a variance to that requirement.
Mr. Chair, question for the applicant. For the For the entertainment that you have on the stage, is it usually in the evening, or do you have some during the afternoon? What kind of time do you usually have entertainment?
Usually our entertainment is usually we do 3 to 6 or 6 till 9 now, I think.
Okay, and when would you say that your main hours of golf for business, when do people usually golf at your place?
Golf is probably a lot of morning stuff. I mean, in my opinion, that would be probably until 1 o'clock is the super busy golf time, and then after that would be mostly lake and a lot of recreational. But golf's still busy in the afternoon, but essentially most of them are busier in the mornings, yeah.
Okay, that would be my only concern regarding parking spots is if, say they're at capacity for golfing and then also having entertainment, then that could have a constraint on parking. But my understanding of golfing is also many folks prefer to do it in the morning when it's not super hot out. So that was my concern.
Did you say something about adding some more parking spaces along?
Correct, yep. We have to add, or we don't have to, but we want to add. I mean, essentially, the bar is going to be so busy that if it's busy, there's no seats left. We don't want to have any parking either. If there's a lot of parking, they're going to want to come in, and we don't have the capacity for that, really. The building can only sustain so many people. We can only cook for so many people, so it has to be that way. But we still want to have the parking for the golf course because we're a great team together. They need the parking. We essentially do need the parking. It's not that we don't. So when we get rid of some of that cart shed and some of that tar, we're going to add all those spots back in across the road. So where we have that bigger parking lot. So
will you be adding any more than?
Yes, we'll be adding 15, I think, and we're getting rid of 15. So we're going to be essentially the same. Yeah, but we added last year already. We added another 16 last year too. So, yep.
Question for, Mr. Chair, question for staff. In this deal where parking is such an issue, I think, would it be better to have less impervious right in this area so that we don't force parking out into the residential area? I mean, what's the bigger loss? I mean, are we by tearing all this up, are we really gaining anything other than the rule, or are we by looking at it, if by maintaining as much parking that we have, or is the lake going to benefit by tearing all these things up?
Mr. Chair, Member Gamrot, I'm trying to pull this up. So the reason the impervious has to be removed is because there was impervious added that went over the variance that was granted years ago to be at 42%. So they have a choice. Their choice would be to remove the impervious. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Their choice would be to remove all of this impervious, and then they could keep this. Whoops. But their option was to get rid of this parking area impervious so they can keep this outdoor seating, that crushed granite.
I think what Dave's trying to say is by getting rid of some of this stuff, are we going to push the parking? The people will be parking out in the residential area.
Yeah, they're going to park in the residential area instead of, they're going to be more of a hazard by getting rid of these spaces in a commercial area. If the water is treated properly when it runs off these areas, would be more important.
That's not an option for the Board of Adjustment tonight because you're not considering a variance on impervious, or they would have needed to do an engineered stormwater plan, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to, their proposal was to eliminate this area.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying, but that wasn't what they chose to bring forward tonight. And as for the number of parking spaces, I guess, Chris, I might have missed that along the way. I didn't factor in you adding 15 in on the other side of the road, so I can update our table here, but.
Yeah, I thought Cronin drew in those extra spots on one of his drawings, didn't he?
So, Chris,
So you'd be at 161.
These were the ones that you added last
Those
year.
were last year, correct.
Yep, and he didn't add any others on here.
I thought he did one, I thought he actually added them on a drawing that he sent me, but I could be wrong on that. I maybe was just looking at that and thinking that was the addition, but yeah, there's additional 15 spots on there. And the golf course and I and the board are talking about, because they want to retar that because they're tarring all the roads. So that was why we were talking about adding the addition onto that side. I would prefer to leave everything the way it is and get more pervious space, but to do that wastewater testing would have costed me more than just doing all of this combined, tearing the building down, putting new concrete. Just that would have costed me the same amount. So I had to look at it on a financial standpoint on which way is better, and the golf course agreed to let us take that part of the shed down, even though we own it. I just wanted to make sure that they had enough parking for their carts and their members and stuff. I would love to not have to take it down and leave the parking where it is, but she's right, I didn't want to go through the money and then spending that and getting it when it was going to be cheaper this way for me. I could have saved it and then spent half of it on that tar parking lot across the road, so.
But, you know, Mr. Chair, my comment to this would be is, to keep from having a problem if I don't know what your parking situation is, but you don't want to have such limited parking that you have parking and people running out into the residential area.
Correct.
You could do like everybody else that's striping them, make all the lots are about 1 foot smaller these days. You'll gain at least 5 or 6 spots that way.
Yeah, those are for the hybrid cars, the little ones you get in there.
Yeah.
I just know my pickup touches both sides.
Yeah.
I think your pickup also got about a foot wider though, too.
Yeah, no Super Duty trucks.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Just in the request, it says to provide less than the required number of off-street parking spaces. You know, in other variance requests, it usually says, 70 feet or this many inches or all that stuff, but this just says provide less. Do we need to be more specific on how much we want them to require?
Madam, Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, it is listed up here on the spreadsheet. So they are proposing 146 and the current ordinance requires 175.
Okay, so if we were to approve it in our language, would we want to specify 146, including the dock slips, or?
Right.
Because the dock slips, if we don't include those 23, then it's 123. Okay, thank you.
The other thing, Mr. Chair, I would just like to add it, and then if someone said it already, if Dave covered it, I apologize, but we did check with the Sheriff's Department and there hadn't been any incident reports for parking on the road. I see the township here, they didn't testify, so I would have to presume they didn't have anything to add on that.
Any other items to discuss? Shall we go to the voting then?
So what number are we using
Yeah,
then now?
we're going to do
The
146 plus this.
Including the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
146, that includes
Yep.
23 dock slips.
Yep. Correct. That all right with everybody? Okay. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Well, parking is part of a commercial business and is allowed.
All right. A yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that the official controls for requiring that number of parking spaces would be for potentially a larger golf course, one that allows more than 4 people per hole, one that isn't necessarily on a lake property that has a high number of boating. So I believe that including the dock slips as part of the parking and allowing for fewer people per hole, fewer parking spots per hole is in harmony with the general purposes.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
I'm a yes, and I'd add to that saying that, you know, the golf course is using up parking spots really only maybe half of the year, because during the winter time, the restaurant is still open, but there's not golf spots being taken up.
All right, Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Dildalong, I believe that yes, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan under business goals. Number 3, to acknowledge tourism's economic value and the prospective contribution of this industry to the economic base and potential for growth. Again, because it is unique to have a golf course on the chain of lakes, I believe that it is consistent.
All right, George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Dildalong, I believe that it is reasonable that in an area where boating is such a part of the culture, to use dock slips as parking spaces, I believe that is reasonable.
All right. George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, I believe it is unique to the property. We have, it's on a lake, and it's reasonable to want to have boat slips as parking places.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
All right, yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
I believe it's been a golf course alongside a restaurant area with a clubhouse for a number of years, so it's not really going to change the character.
All right, Jill?
Yes.
George? Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Ken?
Yes.
Yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that economics were part of this, considering that they were trying to debate where to put their money. But it's not just on that, it's also who uses this commercial property, how it's used, how people get there. I believe that's a bigger part of the discussion.
George?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. And Ken?
Yes.
All right. All 7 of the findings of facts are answered in the affirmative. I am looking for a motion to approve this part of the variance for parking.
Jill DeLong, I move that we approve a variance request to provide less than the required number of off-street parking spaces for a mixed use consisting of a golf course and an eating, drinking establishment, where they are using 146 off-street parking spaces instead of the 175 required, of which 23 are dock slips.
All right. We have our motion and a second.
George Fiedler, I'll second.
All right, second from George. Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Motion's granted. If you have any questions, please contact staff during business hours. The variance requests being finished, we now move towards the end of our agenda. Minutes from April 28th, 2022. Any corrections that anybody needs to note? And if there's not, can I get a motion and a second for the approval?
And this would be for just going into the future for minutes, if, because we have two members with the same last name, if they can, maybe in the minutes, put our first initial.
Otherwise, there might be an argument sometime down in the future, who said what?
There's no chance of that between him.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, motion second being presented. All those in favor, because I don't think you need a roll call on that, do you? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything from the staff for us?
I think there's 5 for June.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah. What is it?
I know, right?
Yeah, but we're getting to the longest days of the year.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
You're right.